My name is Sylvia Reed. I am 67. For 40 years, I worked as a legal secretary who remembers what people forget. Rain needles the porch roof, and my son is on his knees at my door. Caleb shivers in a soaked blazer. He clutches an envelope and a pen. "Mom," he says, and the word breaks. He lifts the envelope like an offering. His breath smokes in the cold air between us tonight. I open the door, only as wide as my shoulder. I fasten the pearl hair clip. One pearl has been missing since last week. I speak the way I learned at depositions. Quiet. Exact. 7 days ago, you took $18 million and threw me out like trash. His eyes close as if the sentence burns. You snapped that I was old. You said I was useless. He nods. He scrapes for pity. They are dangerous. I am in deep. I can fix it if you sign. The envelope softens. I keep my voice level. Why my door, Caleb? Why now? His jaw clenches. Because you always know what to do. Because you are not afraid. I am afraid. I simply remember. I slide the chain latch into place. The shock is not the kneeling. It is the steadiness inside my chest. A week ago, I was the one in the storm, walking away from the home my husband built. The home my name anchors by life estate until my final day. I slept at a motel under a green flicker. Grief did not drown me. It sharpened me. Paper remembers what people forget. The envelope reads, "Voluntary vacate. Confirmation. The county code is wrong. The font is off-center. A notary seal flashes the wrong ink sheen." I was paid for decades to notice such things. Caleb braces on the porch post. "Please, I will lose everything." "You have not named what everything means," I say. "Say it." "My freedom." His voice cracks, then smaller. "My dignity." I remember the hour he came with his wife and a folder and called the plan a restructuring. I remember the suitcase bouncing down the steps while he looked away. He was not a monster. He was a drowning man. But it was my name he tried to use as a raft. "Listen," he says. "A judge can make it clean if you sign tonight." "A judge will do one thing," I answer. "A judge will look at the chain of title and the will. A judge will whisper the sentence you fear most. Your mother still holds the deed." His face turns the color of rain, blue to ash. For a moment, I see him at 8, knees green from grass, cheeks dirty from summer. "Come in from the storm," I say. "Not past the latch, only to the mat." He obeys. Water pools at his shoes. I hand him a towel. I do not touch his hands. 7 days, I say. That is how fast a house can be taken when a signature is forged and a son looks away. 7 days is also how fast a house can learn to protect itself when the truth is patient. "Will you help me?" he asks. "I will not sign lies," I say. "Help is not a line on a form." I tip my head toward the envelope. "Put that away. Then listen." He tucks the envelope inside his jacket. "Tomorrow morning, you will meet me at the county building at 9. Bring your identification. Bring the phone you used this week. Bring the courage to tell the truth on paper. I will bring counsel." He nods. The movement is small and childlike. "Yes, Mom." I close the door to a hand's width. The chain still holds. "Caleb, you threw me out like trash. You told me I was old and useless. Tonight you asked why I am not afraid. I am not afraid because age taught me a different arithmetic. There are numbers that cannot be stolen. There are rooms that cannot be locked against their rightful keeper. There are words that do not wash away." His shoulders sag. "What words?" "Until my final day," I say. That is what the deed says. That is what the law says. That is what I will say to any man who comes to this door. I let the door rest against the chain. There's a towel on the railing. Take it home. Dry off. Come back at 9. The porch light burns steady. The missing pearl at my temple is cool against my skin. I watch my son rise from his knees and walk down the steps his father built. The storm follows him into the dark street. Inside the house, the clock ticks like a witness. The week before the rain, the house smelled like toast and lemon oil. I had opened the windows to let the lake breathe. My name rested on the deed, life estate until my final day, Tom's gift and boundary. I set the kettle, clipped my hair, felt the pearl clip catch. One pearl already gone. When the doorbell rang, I carried 2 mugs to the living room so I would have no reason to rise in a hurry. Caleb stood with Britt on his arm. His smile tried to look responsible. Britt carried a leather portfolio. Caleb glanced at the clock. "Good morning, Mom. We have something exciting," he said. "I prefer plain words," I answered and gave them the cups. "Sit." Britt crossed her legs. The portfolio landed on my coffee table with a thud. Papers bloomed. "This is a restructuring," she said, bright and practiced. Harbor North Capital made a preliminary offer. They value the land at $18 million. We can secure your future at Willow Pines with care and a pool. Caleb and I would be closer to the city. Everybody wins. I looked at my son. He looked at the cup. "Who told you this house was an asset waiting to be awakened?" I asked. "This house is awake." Britt tapped the paper with a pen. "You would still be comfortable. Your gratitude would mean everything in this transition." Caleb cleared his throat. "We can set aside a monthly stipend. The mortgage is gone. Think of relief." Relief arrived years ago when Tom signed the will and the life estate. I kept that to myself. "Page 1, I said. "Show me the mechanism." Britt slid the top sheet forward. It was a quitclaim packaged as consent. It asked me to surrender possession. It asked me to erase my name from the door. I set the paper down and breathed through my nose until the air felt useful again. "No," I said. Britt blinked. "You might not understand the tax advantages." "I understand enough," I said. "I understand that you are both tired and tempted. I understand a plan that depends on my absence. My answer remains no." Caleb's knee bounced. He pressed his palm on it as if to iron the motion flat. "Mom, we are trying to do this with dignity." "Dignity does not require a moving truck," I said, "nor a care facility chosen by strangers." Britt's smile narrowed. "Willow Pines is not a facility. It is a community. Community is when people learn your stories before they label your needs," I said, and placed the paper back on her stack. "This home is my community. The deed says so." Caleb stood. His shadow crossed the rug Tom loved. "We have other appointments. The market will not wait," he said. "Think about it for an hour." "I have thought about it for 40 years, I said. "The answer has a spine." They moved toward the door. Britt paused at the hall closet, pulled down my old suitcase as if she were straightening a crooked frame. She set it by the threshold without looking at me. The handle clicked. The sound was small and final. "Unnecessary," I said. "Just practical," she said. Caleb reached for the deadbolt and turned it as if demonstrating a feature to a buyer. My chest went very still. He looked past me at the window, at the lake light on the glass. "You can call when you are ready," he said. "I am ready now," I said. "No." Britt smoothed her skirt. We will give you space. She opened the door. The air slid in. I gathered my sweater from the chair. My fingers brushed the pearl clip. It tugged. A second pearl loosened, skittered across the hardwood, and hid beneath the baseboard heater. I did not chase it. Caleb lifted the suitcase to the porch. Its wheels bumped the 3 wooden steps Tom had measured twice and cut once. I followed them to the threshold and put my hand on the jamb. My pulse was steady. "You were the boy who watered the tomatoes when your father traveled," I said to my son. "You learned that roots hold." "Then do it with your eyes open," I said. They stepped onto the porch. The door swung inward. Then, slowly, back. Caleb's hand rested on the outer knob. He pressed. The latch kissed the strike plate. The bolt turned. The new lock snicked into a place that did not belong to it. On the sill, a ring of dust marked where a fern had lived and died. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen. I stood alone in the living room and listened to the house breathe through the open window. Then I closed it, 1 inch at a time, very slowly. The motel room buzzed like a tired beehive. The neon vacancy sign outside washed the curtains green. I slid the bolt, put the key on the dresser, and stood in, the small light between the bed and the window. The envelope Britt had pressed into my palm lay beside the plastic ice bucket. It held 2 crisp hundreds and a copy of a quitclaim I had never seen. The bills were clean. The document was not. I sat and smoothed the pages with my hand. The air smelled of bleach and smoke. My name stared back in black ink with the steady flourish I lost 6 years ago. The signature was bold and confident. The I and the Y clasped each other like dancers. My hand went cold. I traced the first loop without touching. I breathed through my mouth so my breath would not fog the mark. 6 winters passed, I slipped on the steps. Ice hid under powder. The wrist broke like a snapped branch. It healed. I returned to my desk, but my handwriting never marched the same way. The slope softened. The pressure lightened. The tail of the Y in Reed learned a small tremor like a leaf tapping glass. This ink held none of that. The weight was uniform. The descent of the Y cut straight and proud. I lifted the page to the lamp. The notary seal smudged violet. Washington uses oil-based ink that cures slow and deep. This sheen belonged to a cheap pad. The date favored last month. The time did not match clerk hours. Even the font spoke too loudly. The county uses a modest template. Here the letters crowded like guests at a pushy party. On the nightstand sat the pearl hair clip. 1 pearl missing. 1 thread of silver bent out of true. I pinned my hair for steadiness. It was not vanity. It was muscle memory from mornings I prepared trial binders and reminded partners what they forgot to notice. Paper remembers what people forget. That sentence carried me through work and grief. I counted backward. The suitcase thumped the porch steps. Caleb looked through me. Britt managed a tidy smile. Tom had measured those railings with patient hands. He wrote the will so a boundary would be seen and kept. I looked again at the quitclaim. Voluntary surrender carried my printed name and the false signature. I imagined the scanner glass, a borrowed file where my old signature slept, cutting and printing with a confidence that has not been mine since the fall. Theft can wear a clean shirt. Forgery can wash its hands. Truth keeps a texture you can feel if you look long enough. I placed the 200s back in the envelope. I would not spend them. They belonged to the lie. I slid the document into a clear sleeve I had packed out of habit. Habit can protect you when hope is tired. I opened the suitcase and laid the sleeve on a sweater and a notebook of Tom's field notes. Then I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark while the neon painted a thin river on the carpet. The clock clicked each minute. I thought of Caleb reading under a blanket. He believed rules were fences you could swing a leg over if no one watched. I loved his daring. I trusted it once. Daring without truth grows hungry. I pressed my thumb against the ridge where the break once swelled. The body warns in ink. My phone lay face down. I scrolled to Amelia Park. 25 years ago, she was a new associate who aligned her pens by color. She listened the way good surgeons listen before they cut. I typed a message and deleted it. I called instead. The ring sounded like a steel tap. Second ring, then her voice. "Sylvia, are you safe?" "I am. The document is not." I described the seal, the font, the confident Y, the county code that grinned at its own mistake. She did not interrupt. I could hear her breathing. I could feel the folder opening in her mind. "Do nothing loud," she said. "Let the title company find the storm by itself. Send scans in the morning. Sleep with the document near. Breathe. Remember what you know." "I remember," I said. "Paper remembers." When the call ended, I lifted the curtain 2 inches. The lot held 4 cars. The ice machine blinked. A man smoked under the awning. I closed the curtain and checked the bolt. Then I slid the sleeve under my pillow as if it could warm and wake. The heater rumbled. The neon hummed. I lay down fully clothed. I listened for the sound a lie makes when it understands it has been seen. Amelia's office sat above a bakery. The hallway smelled like butter and coffee. The conference room smelled like paper and calm. I placed the sleeve on the table. Amelia clicked on the lamp and lowered the blinds. The magnifier slid across the quitclaim. "Walk me through your wrist history," she said. "Fracture 6 winters ago, plate and screws, handwriting softened. The tail on the Y loses pressure," I answered. I did not sit. I rested my hand on the chair back. The pearl clip held. Amelia set the magnifier. She aligned the signature next to a check I endorsed last month. She touched the notary stamp with a cotton swab. Faint purple lifted. "Washington uses oil-based ink that cures into the paper. This is water-based, quick dry," she said. "Also, look at the seal emboss. The ridges are shallow. The dye is cheap." She checked the footer. The county code used an older convention. The clerk's office switched formats. 2 years ago. She circled the timestamp. This would have been recorded at 6:42 p.m. "The recorder's office closes at 4:30, she said. "The font on your name is proportional. The county uses monospaced for this block." I breathed. Relief came sharp and cold. "So the house stands," I said. "The house stands by law, but we are not racing into a courtroom," she said. "You told me Harbor North is behind the money. That means a title insurer sits between them and the county. Evermark Title will run their chain of title. They will look for clouds. They will want clean occupancy." "Life Estate is a thunderhead," I said. "Exactly," she replied. "Let Evermark see lightning with their own instruments. Do not hand them my notes. We do not want to teach them where to search. We want them to arrive. Meanwhile, we preserve evidence." She opened a sterile envelope. She lifted the document by the edges. She photographed every page with a date card and a ruler. She took a toner sample with transparent tape. She logged it on a chain of custody sheet. This was not a war cry. This was housekeeping. Order first, anger later. "Who touched this document besides you?" she asked. Britt placed it in my hand. Caleb handled the envelope on my porch, I said. In the motel, I used gloves. Good, she said. She wrote their names on a legal pad. She turned to me. What do you want, Sylvia? Not in legal terms. In plain ones. I want my boundary respected. I want my son to stop sinking. I want lies to be seen without fire or headlines. I said. I do not want handcuffs. I want consequence. Amelia nodded. We can do consequence. It starts with oxygen. Pressure shifts when insurers smell risk. She closed the folder. Here is the plan. Do not speak to Harbor North. Do not contact Brit. Keep your phone on. Unknown numbers may include title examiners. If they ask for a handwriting sample, provide an authenticated sample from after the fracture. Do not volunteer older signatures. Understood, I said. You will also stay in the house if you can, she added. I am locked out, I said. She sighed. Her ring tapped the table. Then remain visibly present on the property line when you need access. Leave a paper trail of attempted entry. Do not break anything. Do not raise your voice. I do not raise my voice, I said. I know, she said. That is why I like working with you. She handed me a folder. Inside were copies of the Life Estate Clause, a memo on quiet title, a list of title red flags. She included a blank journal with numbered pages. Write every contact, date, time, what was said, where you stood, she said. Paper remembers. We help it remember the right details. The bakery's oven cycled. The room warmed. Amelia, I said, there is one more thing. Tom's maps. He believed the clay lens under our hill protects the valley's freshwater. She stilled. He was a hydrologist, she said. Engineer by trade, water by love, I said. Developers hate clay lenses, she said. Deep footings break seals, salt moves in, wells go brackish. I nodded. He wrote that in the margins. She leaned back. Her eyes narrowed. That could enlarge the circle, but we do not swing at everything. First, we let Evermark do its job. Then, we choose the right lever. She clicked the lamp off and on, a habit when she thought. Was there anything else Tom left that might matter now? She asked. I drew a breath and counted my courage. I hesitated. My fingers found the pearl clip. The hinge felt warm from the lamp. The question opened a door I had not walked through in years. I left Amelia with a folder under my arm. The bakery air followed me down the stairs and into noon wind. I logged the time in my small journal. Presence matters. Paper remembers. From the sidewalk, I could see our maple and the roofline of Tom's detached study behind the garage. The house wore a new lock. The study kept its old brass keyhole. Gwen lifted 2 fingers from her porch across the hedge. I crossed the side yard and knelt by the birdhouse Tom built with Caleb in 4th grade. The base loosened with a quarter turn. The spare key waited where it had waited for 20 years. I texted Amelia before I used it, entering detached study, documenting access, no forced entry. The door opened with a cedar sigh. Dust lay on the drafting table in a careful film. Tom's T-square leaned against the wall. His field notebook lay open to a spring entry about flow rates after rain. Neat numbers, careful arrows. I clicked the gooseneck lamp. A warm circle steadied my hands. The drawers whispered when I pulled them. County sheets, well logs, topo quads. A tube labeled Alder Hill Aquifer lay near the back in Tom's neat block letters. The cap resisted, then gave. I coaxed out heavy paper. The elastic band crumbled. Blue lines veined hill and valley. Arrows marked flow. Hashed areas showed a clay lens. Dashed circles flagged springs with names we spoke on hikes. In the corner, the USGS crest sat like a seal. Beneath it, Tom had penciled a legend. He trusted pencil on maps. Ink freezes. Pencil lets a margin breathe. Along the lower right, he had written at a slant I knew from grocery lists. If the clay lens is breached by deep footing or cut, salt will travel. Expect wells to go brackish within 18 months. The top edge curled toward its old shape. I reached up, took the pearl hair clip from my hair, and pinned the upper corner to the cork strip. The metal teeth bit paper and cork. The missing pearl made a small, dark socket against blue. The map lay flat. The room stilled. Tom talked about water the way some men talk about songs. He listened for it underground. He recognized its patience and its temper. He would stand with one hand on the porch post and one on my shoulder and say the hill kept the valley honest. People forget. Aquifers do not. I traced the clay boundary with a blunt chopstick. A penciled driveway line from an old proposal sliced too near the hashed zone. Under the map, I found a second sheet with test pit depths from a developer's bid 15 years ago. Tom had stamped it received and scrawled declined across the corner. A green canvas folio wedged against the drawer back. Inside, tabbed sleeves held photographs of well caps and hand-drawn cross-sections. In the rear pocket lay an envelope with my name. The ink had faded to tea. I opened it with my thumbnail. The letter was short, his hand steady. You will be braver than you think when boundary asks you to stand. Use paper before fire. If anyone touches the lens, show them the map. If you must, show them your name on the deed. I photographed each corner, legend and note. Then the envelope and folio. Evidence is a kindness to your future self. I wrote the time and file names in my journal. When I lifted the folio again, a card slid free and landed face down. Thick stock, silver edges. I turned it over. Closing celebration. Friday, 7 p.m. Avery Reed, residence. Harbor, North Capitol. RSVP was scratched away by a quick pen stroke. Someone had written confirmed. A smear of foundation rode the margin where a thumb had pressed too hard. I held the card above the map. The word closing threw a shadow across Tom's pencil boundary. I slipped the card into a clear sleeve. I slipped the letter behind it. Then I rolled the map gently, pinned the elastic with the pearl clip for a moment, and slid the tube back where I found it. I wiped the table so my presence would look like care instead of conflict. I locked the study and returned the key to the birdhouse base. The garage door reflected the sky. The lake lifted a breeze through the maple. Gwen called to ask if I wanted coffee later. I said yes. Her voice steadied my breathing again. The card lay steady in my bag. The party would be tomorrow. The world thought it knew which door would close. I knew which door could still hold. Boundary holds when someone remembers why it exists. Tonight, I would remember for both of us. I walked to the house after sunset by the public path along the lake. The invitation card in my bag felt heavier than paper. The maples on our hill held the last gold. Strings of bulbs draped from branch to branch as if someone had trapped a swarm of tame stars. Laughter rose over the water. The patio glowed. The living room windows shone wider than I remembered. I kept to the dock shadows, the place where Tom taught Caleb to tie a bowline without looking. Roots hold even when light gets loud. A valet station had sprouted at the gravel turnout. A bar stood on the flagstones. A young man in a white jacket polished glasses he did not need to polish. Britt wore a silver dress that caught every bulb. She greeted guests by name as if she had rehearsed their syllables. She swept a hand toward the lake and called it a legacy viewed best from the right angle. People smiled at the word legacy when the glass in their hand was full. Caleb trailed her by 2 steps. He smiled a beat late. His blazer sagged at one shoulder. When a banker clapped him on the back, Caleb flinched the way boys flinch when a ball comes high and fast. I stood behind the boathouse and watched the patterns that repeat in families. Someone calls a thing an opportunity. Someone else calls it a home. The same noun has different gravity depending on who needs to sleep through the night. A man in a navy suit adjusted the speakers until the bass thumped like a second heart. Servers in black carried trays of toasts and tiny skewers. I could hear the phrases that spend companies, words like escrow and disbursement and window. Brit kept saying clean. She meant clean title. She did not mean clean conscience. I stayed in the dark and let my breath find a steady shape. Gwen's porch light winked on across the hedge. She must have heard the music. She must have felt the ground shift the way old houses do when people forget who hammered the joists. I touched the pearl clip at my temple and pressed the hinge flat. The missing pearl fit my fingertip like a small moon. A sedan without chrome slid to the curb. It did not idle. It settled. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. The man who emerged did not raise his voice or arms. The center moved toward him anyway. He wore a dark suit the color of rain when it is leaving. His tie was not quite black. He looked at the house as if it were a drawing he could fold into quarters and file. Brit reached him first. "Victor, we are honored," she said. Her brightness sharpened. Her hands fluttered for a moment, then stilled on the stem of her glass. Caleb arrived second. He shook Victor's hand with 2 of his own. The second hand was not necessary. Victor Hale scanned the patio. His eyes clicked from bar to speakers to sliding door. Then he looked up at the porch where Tom had once stood to check gutters after the first frost. He nodded once as if confirming a measurement. His mouth barely moved when he spoke. I could see Caleb lean forward to catch the syllables. I shifted closer along the boathouse shadow and stopped by the cedar, where we had hung lanterns at Caleb's graduation. The wind carried a few clean words. Mitch from Harbor North made introductions. The names slid by like boats. I watched Victor angle Caleb away from the crowd toward the rail that faced the dark water. Good fixers position a man against emptiness. The body learns its own smallness quickly. Brit stayed with the guests and kept pouring confidence into their ears. She laughed too high at a joke about new money finding old wood. Then she touched her hair and looked toward the rail. A seam opened at the corner of her mouth that a camera would not catch. Someone asked about permits. She said the team had it in hand. She did not say whose hands shook. At the rail, Victor spoke with a patience that felt colder than anger. He used plain sentences. He used the kind of nouns that do not argue. Caleb's neck stiffened, then softened, then stiffened again. Victor did not remove a document from his briefcase because he did not carry one. He carried the pressure of a clock. A server passed me at the edge of the lawn. He looked through me the way servers do when the night has a list they must finish. I stayed still. Victor finally tilted his head an inch. Caleb followed the motion and glanced toward the house. Brit cut across the patio to them with her glass lifted like a prop. She attempted to stitch herself into the conversation. Victor accepted the interruption with a fraction of a nod. He does not swat flies. He lets the air carry them away. He said one sentence, the wind did not break. He said it as if the Syllables weighed a pound each. Evermark wants clear title in 5 business days. Caleb swallowed. The muscle leaped in his jaw. The glass in his hand tilted and then steadied. Britt's smile stayed at the corners. The middle of her face emptied of blood. I felt my heart land in its place, heavy and calm. The string lights hummed. The lake lifted a small sound against the rocks. A guest cheered for nothing in particular. A toast rose. The crowd repeated a word I could not hear. I stepped back into the shadow and put 2 fingers to the pearl clip. Paper remembers what people forget. Clocks remember too. The sentence Victor delivered slid into the night like a cold blade. The party did not know it yet. The room had just changed shape. Morning shook itself loose from the lake with a thin veil of fog. I slept little after the lights and the laughter. I boiled water and wiped the counter twice. The house felt like a chest that had learned to hold its breath. When the knock came, it was the soft rhythm of a neighbor who remembers old doors. I opened to Gwen Mercer on the porch with a foil-wrapped loaf and a thermos under her arm. Pumpkin bread. She said it the way some people say medicine that also tastes like kindness. We sat at the kitchen table that looks west to the maple. Gwen poured coffee with the steady hand of a librarian who has passed 1,000 quiet cups across a reference desk. Her eyes caught the angle of my hair. The pearl clip held, but showed its gap. She did not ask. She reached into her coat and set down a small mending kit, as if we were about to sew a seam. Kindness has its own tools. It does not announce itself. It arrives prepared. I heard music last night. The house sounded taller than usual, she said. I could picture Tom tapping a gutter with a broom handle. He would have told the wind to behave. I smiled because she gives the dead jobs to do. It keeps them near without asking them to return. I cut the bread. Cinnamon and nutmeg opened the room. We ate without hurry. My shoulders came down from my ears. The clock kept reasonable time again. Gwen wrapped her hands around the cup. When my son married Tess, she walked into my kitchen and said, "This is mine now." She meant the room. She meant the story that made the room. I did not argue. I left a week. I labeled drawers with cards. I returned with a pie. We never spoke about that sentence. We spoke about recipes. 10 years later, she apologized in a parking lot. She cried because it had taken too long. She looked at me. Sometimes, dignity is the only language anyone hears. I thought about Britt's portfolio landing on my table like a gavel, about Caleb watching his hands while I read a paper that asked me to disappear from my own hallway. I could have shouted. I memorized the edges instead. Paper remembers what people forget. My quiet does not mean I did not hear the sentence. It means I intend to answer it in a dialect they understand. Dates, seals, chain of title, the kind of grammar that does not raise its voice. Gwen traced a circle in a crumb field. People think forgiveness is a door without a lock. I think forgiveness is a door with a key we choose to carry. Some days we open, some days we do not. The point is, we are the ones who decide. She lifted her eyes. You look like a woman with a key in her pocket. I touched the pearl clip. The hinge felt warm. I am counting, not to punish, to remember. She laughed softly. That is the librarian creed. We count to remember. We count to make a world that can be found again. She refilled our cups. If you need a witness who can sit quietly, I have practice. I thanked her. The map in Tom's study pulsed in my mind like a tide chart. I had not told Gwen about the clay lens. I did not need to test her steadiness. It was already proven by the way she brings bread before questions. We packed 2 slices for later and washed the knife. Gwen wiped the table in slow lanes as if erasing chalk. She noticed the small, dark socket in the clip again and said only this: "Some jewelry prefers to show the spaces where living has rubbed against it." I nodded. After she left, the kitchen grew larger by an inch. Grief makes rooms shrink. Neighborliness returns their square footage a handful at a time. I opened my journal and wrote the time and her name. I had logged the party, the valet, the sentence about 5 business days. I added pumpkin bread, comfort, offer to witness. I wrote the line she gave me about keys. Then I closed the cover and set it by the phone. The phone buzzed against the wood. Unknown number with a Seattle exchange. Message preview from Kara Singh. Evermark title. Need to clarify a 2019 signature. Please confirm best time to speak today. The kettle reboiled on a reflex. I felt the house inhale. Answers were stepping onto the porch. I read it twice. Then a third time. Precision steadies pulse. I set the journal beside deed copy. I typed yes, noon works. I will be here. At noon, my phone lit with a Seattle number. I laid the deed copy beside my journal and answered on the first ring. "This is Sylvia." A clear voice introduced herself as Kara Singh, senior examiner with Evermark title, calling to clarify a recorded instrument and a signature card associated with my parcel. She asked if I had 10 minutes. I told her precision likes a chair. I had one ready. Kara's tone belonged to somebody who measures twice before she names a line. Our file shows a document labeled voluntary vacate confirmation dated last month. Before I proceed, I need handwriting exemplars dated after your wrist fracture. Do I have your permission to ask a few narrow questions? Yes, I said. The fracture was 6 winters ago. My hand softened after. The tail of my Y carries a tremor. I could hear her pen moving. I pictured a legal pad and a neat column of times. She asked for a recent canceled check or deposit slip bearing my signature. She asked whether I had executed any quitclaim or occupancy waiver in the last 12 months. No, I said, and let the word rest without echo. Would you be willing to provide an exemplar in my presence? She asked. It reduces disputes about process. I told her I preferred that. I also preferred to give samples post-fracture only. She said that aligned with her scope. I can be at your porch in 20, she added. I glanced at the clock and the window. The maple threw a mild shade. I told her I would meet her at the door with my identification. She arrived without fanfare, slate blazer, flats that did not apologize for comfort. She remained on the top step. She showed her badge. I showed my driver's license and let her read the name on the deed through the glass panel. She opened a clipboard. The pen in her hand was purple. She noticed me noticing and smiled once. Purple keeps me alert, she said. Blue puts me to sleep. The nib made a careful scratch that felt like a clock. She slid a form to the sill. I signed a consent to sample. Then she placed a lined sheet and asked me to write 3 sentences. My full name, the property address, the phrase until my final day. I printed today's date and wrote with the patience Tom taught me for knots and forms. The tremor in the Y showed up twice, a small tick, honest as rain. Kara nodded. Her gaze softened a fraction. Thank you, she said. Now initial here to affirm post-fracture status. She asked whether a notary I recognized had witnessed any occupancy document for this parcel. I answered that I did not recognize any such event. I named no names. I speculated about nothing. I handed her copies of 2 recent checks and a bank signature card issued the year after the fall. She compared spacing. She measured the pressure where the second syllable of read dips. She tapped the purple pen against the margin. "I will log these," she said. "Chain of custody begins now." "May I ask a non-binding question?" she continued. "Are you in possession?" I breathed once and spoke plainly. "By law, I hold a life estate. The lock was changed without my consent. I am documenting each attempted entry and each denial." She wrote that sentence exactly. I watched the purple marching across her page like a careful parade. Kara folded the clipboard. "I will not ask you for old signatures," she said. "If another party submits an older exemplar, I will record its date. If we need to examine the original instrument, we will pull it. We do not work from copies where doubt exists." She paused as if to weigh the next phrase. "You seem to understand the process." I told her I spent 40 years earning a living from margins and stamps. "Paper remembers," she said, almost like a salute. I nodded. "It does." She thanked me for my time. She did not discuss outcomes. Good examiners never do. She stepped off the porch and checked the sky as if reading a barometer. Then she left as she had arrived, without dust. I wrote the time and her questions in my journal. I wrote the color of her pen because details anchor memory when months stretch and stories wander. I washed a mug. The house exhaled. My plan remained the same. Do nothing loud. Let Evermark find what it already suspected. Keep my edges clean. I pinned my hair. The pearl clip clicked. The missing pearl nested against my temple like a reminder that living leaves rooms. The phone hummed against the wood. A new text from an unfamiliar number with no name. The message was short and neat. "Please confirm a brief meeting today at 4. Mr. Victor Hale requests 15 minutes. Greystone Cafe." This is a courtesy hold. My pulse did not climb. Clocks can be steady even when weather changes. I wiped the counter with a small circle. Then I typed a single sentence that neither welcomed nor refused. I wrote, "I can spare 10. Greystone Cafe had big windows and small conversations, the kind of place where deals tried to look like coffee. I arrived 5 minutes early and chose a table with my back to the wall. The invitation card from last night sat in my bag. The edges had softened where my thumb had worried them. I ordered hot water and toast. I like to give my hands a job when my mind has work to do. Victor Hale entered at 4 on the dot. He did not scan the room. He knew where I was before the bell stopped ringing. Rain dark suit, no briefcase, the posture of a man who treats time like a ledger. He nodded once and sat opposite me. "Ms. Reed," he said, "thank you for meeting on short notice." "I can spare 10, I answered and set the cup so it would not rattle. Waiting is not weakness. It is design. "There is a path that spares everyone noise," he said. "Your continued residence could be accommodated through a stipend at a comparable community. Funds available upon confirmation that you relinquish occupancy." "Relinquish," I repeated, tasting the word. "You chose that one." His mouth shifted. "Consent makes clean records. Clean records make fast money. Fast money keeps men safe." "Which men?" I asked. "Your son is under pressure," he said. "A quiet solution would relieve that pressure." "You mean debt," I said. "A clock that charges for every minute. It is ignored." He accepted the word the way a rock accepts rain. "You understand pressure," he said. "I respect that." "I understand boundary," I said. "Pressure only fails when it pretends the line never existed." He asked what I wanted. My husband's promise kept, the law boring and correct, my son alive without erasing his mother with a pen. Principle is expensive. he said. Not as expensive as regret, I said. The server set an espresso he had not ordered. Victor wrapped his hand around the cup and did not drink. People sometimes allow a story to end in a tidy paragraph, he said. This could be one of those times. The company I represent is practical. It would prefer to avoid attention. Attention finds its own level, I said. I drew the silver-edged invitation and set it between us. Harbor North Capital glinted. I slid the card until it touched his sleeve. Then, I took the pearl hair clip from my hair and laid it on the card, hinge open, teeth showing. I do not shout, I said. I sign. Paper remembers what people forget. He looked at the clip. You are making a threat. I am making a record, I said. Title, deed, occupancy. A party scheduled to celebrate a closing that requires clear title in 5 business days. Your sentence last night traveled farther than you meant. I am not your headline. I am your ledger. He studied the missing pearl as if it were a note in the margin. You will not move, he said. I will not be moved, I said. There is a difference. Your refusal will have consequences, he said. Truth always does, I answered. So does forgery. That word made a small crater between us. He brushed his cuff with one precise touch. If someone made a mistake, there are channels. Channels that begin at the title company, I said. We are in them now. The door opened. Coffee air slipped in. A couple took the window table. Life went on, paying little mind to our private flood. I lifted the invitation, slid it back into my bag, and left the clip on the table, as if it belonged to the grain. He reached at last. He picked up the clip with 2 fingers and turned it so the empty socket faced him. His eyes narrowed. Holes matter in planning. He set the clip down carefully, the way men set tools they might need again. Our 10 minutes are finished, I said. If you need to speak to me, use counsel. He stood, buttoned his jacket, left the espresso full. At the door, he paused a fraction too long for a man certain of his wall. Then he went into the late afternoon. I closed my hand over the clip. The hinge clicked shut like a small decision. Outside, the street smelled like rain starting again. I paid for the water and the toast, and walked home with the card against my palm like a compass that did not pretend to point north. Something in the air had shifted. I could feel the pressure drop without a barometer. I unlocked Tom's study and set the clip beside the map. The missing pearl kept looking like a dot on a blueprint where someone had forgotten to draw a beam. Noah Patel worked in a second-floor office above a copy shop. Toner and truth shared the same air. He met me at the door with a mechanical pencil behind his ear and a kindness that did not leak into pity. His desk held a legal pad, a calculator, and a short row of sharpened pencils like ribs. He gestured to the chair that faced a whiteboard. On it, he had drawn boxes connected by arrows. Money maps look simple when a patient hand draws them. Tell me what you know, he said. I laid Amelia's summary on the corner and kept my hands on my knees. Harbor North wants the land. A title insurer sits in the middle. Evermark is already looking. My son used a counterfeit process to pretend I left. Pressure comes from a clock I cannot see. Noah nodded. He wrote SPV in the first box. Harbor North rarely buys directly. They set up a special purpose vehicle. The SPV borrows against the expected closing. The money is not a prize. It is a leash. He drew a second box and wrote, bridge loan. Short-term, expensive, hard default if anything smells wrong. High default interest per day. A facility fee just for breathing. He added a thin box labeled title commitment. Funds do not move until the title insurer is ready to bless the chain. Examiners want zero occupants with claims. Investors want zero surprises. Clear means clear. He drew a small lightning bolt next to life estate and underlined it twice. A life estate is not a speed bump. It is a road closed sign. I watched his pencil. The sound against paper was soft and relentless. "What keeps the clock running?" I asked. "Term sheet conditions," he said. "They say 5 business days after commitment for the SPV to get its money. If any condition fails, the lender can cancel or jack the rate. They designed it to force the seller's side to corral trouble fast." He looked up. "Your quiet is trouble they cannot corral." I opened my small journal and wrote his phrases. Paper remembers, so do pencils. "Caleb and Britt celebrated as if the funds were already real," I said. "People toast a promise. Lenders honor a condition," he said. "Here is the part you should hear. The SPV likely has a side letter that requires evidence that you have either surrendered possession voluntarily or that no life estate exists. That requires proof. Your existence with a key defeats the proof." "I do not have a key to the front door," I said. "They changed the lock." "You have a key to the study," he said. "You have property to maintain. You have a title examiner who stood on your porch. You have a record of denial of entry. Presence is not noise. Presence is oxygen." He turned to the whiteboard again and drew a new line from SPV to a small box labeled guarantor. "Sometimes the borrower provides a limited guarantee. Fallback obligations if the deal dies ugly." "My son," I said, keeping my voice even. He nodded once. He does not use fear when a line will do. He totaled something on the calculator and slid the pad toward me. "Every day, the title stays clouded. Default interest accumulates. By Friday, the pressure doubles. By the following week, it chokes. This is why the man in the dark suit came to measure your quiet." He tapped the number with his pencil. "The only thing you must not do is feed their hope with a compromise that sounds tidy on the phone." "I will not," I said. "I will not be moved." He smiled in a way that looked like rest. "Then we let them walk into their own paperwork." He erased a tiny arrow and redrew it a millimeter to the left. "Precision is mercy. It prevents unnecessary pain." We reviewed Amelia's plan. I would keep my entries clean. No noisy accusations. No late-night posts. No speculation about motive. He asked for copies of Tom's map notes. He wanted to understand the environmental pressure point, but agreed it should stay in its tube until the title clock ran its course. When I placed the folio on his desk, he did not open it. He weighed it in his palm and set it by the pencils. His phone buzzed against the pad. The screen lit. He raised a finger and read. A text from a familiar number. Bankers become human when doubt knocks. Sometimes they whisper. He typed a question. Waited. Breathed. Then he turned the phone for me to see without touching. A cropped image of a term sheet header. SPV name stripped by a thumb. Conditions bolded in tired legalese. Release conditions. Receipt of final title commitment with no exceptions for occupancy, life estate, or claims of right of possession. Receipt of estoppel confirming voluntary vacate. Disbursement deadline. 5 business days from commitment date. Funds automatically rescind at close of business on day 5. Default interest accrues thereafter. Noah tapped the corner. Today is day 1. The clock ends Friday at 5. I felt the room align with my ribs. Then we watched the hands move, I said. He typed one more question. The reply buzzed back. A second image. a penalty table with numbers that rose like a stair no one wanted to climb. He did not show me the guarantor page. He did not need to. I closed my journal and set the pearl hair clip on the cover. The missing pearl looked like a hole punched on purpose. "Thank your friend without saying thank you," I said. "I always do," he answered. "Go home. Be visible. Answer your phone whenever Mark calls. Let nothing in you hurry." Outside the copy shop, a young man carried a stack of blank paper to a trunk. I breathed the dry scent that lives in reams. Blank pages are not neutral. They are brave when held for the right sentence. I pinned my hair. The hinge clicked. Then I went down the stairs into a week with a shape I could feel. Day 3 began with a sky the color of pencil shavings. The lake held its breath and the maples barely moved. I stood at the property line with pruning shears and a canvas bag for clippings. Work gives silence something to hold. Through the kitchen window that Caleb had left, cracked for air, voices slid into the yard as if poured from a pitcher. I did not step closer. I did not step away. Britt's voice came first, bright metal under velvet. "We need the voluntary confirmation today. If she signs that she left by choice, Evermark closes its file. Harbor North releases funds, and we can put this behind us." Caleb answered lower, a tired drum. Victor said he would resolve it. He said everyone wants a quiet weekend. "Quiet costs a signature," Britt said, "or it costs something far worse if the clock runs out." I cut a dead stalk and laid it in the bag. The pain reflected a sliver of my face. The pearl clip sat where it belonged. The missing pearl looked like a dark moon. Caleb spoke again. "I tried the motel. She did not answer. She will not take my calls now." Britt clicked her tongue. "Of course she will not. She thinks saying nothing keeps her safe. We need to get her to the county. 1 stamp, 10 seconds." Silence is an answer. It is a full sentence when used with care. Wind pressed the curtains. Their lace breathed once and settled. "This is not only her," Caleb said. "It is Tom. It is his words. She lives inside them like a church. I thought the will was paper. I did not understand that it is her spine." Britt did not reply for a long beat. When she did, her voice was flat. "Spines bend every day. Money is a brace. Money is a leash," Caleb said, and the truth of it took some heat from my chest. Victor said the lender can double the rate Friday. He said the guarantee triggers if we miss. Britt exhaled hard. "Then bring her the envelope again. Make it simple. Offer to drive. Tell her we found a nicer place than Willow Pines. Tell her she can choose paint colors." "Do not talk to my mother about paint," he said, almost laughing. And then the laugh died. "She taught me to sand rails until they did not catch on skin." I cut another stalk. The shears clicked like a metronome. Inside the kitchen, a drawer slid open. The thud of a stamp pad snapped. A pen uncapped. Britt had always loved tools. She believed possession was 9/10 of solution. "Victor will handle it," Caleb repeated, softer now, as if he needed a lullaby. "Victor handles the lender," Britt said. "He does not handle mothers." The sentence landed in the yard like a small stone and rolled under the hydrangea where I could not see it. I carried the bag to the compost and returned by the long way, so the gravel would remind me I was outside by choice. Inside the window, there came the hard breath people use when they have been careful too long. Britt again. "I did not sign up for a life where a 70-year-old woman can ruin us with a pen." Caleb did not answer. If I had stepped inside, I might have placed a hand on the back of his neck the way I used to when he stared at math he did not yet understand. I stayed in the yard. The garden had problems I could solve without injury. A van rolled up, brakes whispered, a florist logo on the door. The driver carried a white box to the porch, rang, and left. I did not look inside the card. I saw the ribbon shine like an apology paid for with a credit line. The box sat, a small cloud that did not water the hill. The window thudded down. The lock turned. The air lost its thread to the voice inside. I washed my hands at the spigot and wrote the time in my journal. Day 3. Window ajar. Argument about voluntary confirmation. Mention of guarantee. Victor as lullaby. Recording a wound steadies it. Paper remembers what people forget. Before I closed the book, the phone buzzed with a number I recognized. Kara. Her text was stripped of drama. Examiners prefer fact to thunder. Preliminary review notes indicate notary seal on instrument does not match state-issued oil-based ink profile. Request confirmation of post-fracture exemplars received. Will update upon chain verification. I breathed. The world shifted a degree toward level. I slid the phone beside the journal and touched the pearl clip. Hinge firm, gap honest. Day 3 had found its proof. Today, Day 4 rose with a hard blue sky. The lake flashed like a blade when wind touched it. Near noon, I carried pruning shears to the side yard and checked the gate. Inside the house, a door slid. Footsteps crossed the kitchen. Caleb stepped onto the patio with a phone flat against his ear. Britt hovered behind him. I stayed by the hydrangea bed and clipped dead heads into a bucket. The thin air carried Kara's voice from Caleb's speaker. Examiners do not shout, they weigh. Mr. Reed, we are reviewing the instrument labeled voluntary vacate confirmation. The notary stamp ink does not conform to the state's oil-based profile. We also have a handwriting exemplar from Ms. Reed, dated post-fracture. We will follow up after chain verification. Please keep your files handy. Britt spoke too quickly. We can cure it today. We can bring in a notary. We can show new signatures. Kara answered like rain on tin. We do not cure an instrument by replacing it with a new one that contradicts occupancy facts. We examine the record. We issue a commitment, or we do not. Caleb lowered the phone. He took a sip from a highball he did not want and set it on the rail. The glass stood there. Then his hand forgot it. It tilted. It fell. The sound when it hit the flagstone was a clear bell that broke in the same breath. Shards spread in a flat star. Britt flinched. Then she crouched and began picking pieces with her fingertips. We will fix it, she said. Victor will fix it. Caleb stared at the rail. She still holds the deed, he said, so quietly that I almost believed he was speaking to the wood. I dropped another dry bloom into the bucket and let the thought cross the lawn. I carried the clippings to the compost and walked the long way past Tom's study. I unlocked the door. The room smelled like dust that remembers rain. I rolled Tom's map onto the drafting table. Blue lines rose. The clay lens lay under my hands like a sleeping animal you do not wake unless fire is near. I took photographs again. Corner, legend, pencil notes. Then I slid the sheets back into the tube and tightened the cap until the seam sat clean. On the shelf stood a wooden box with dovetailed joints. Tom had kept pencils. There. I opened it and found a coil of twine and a paper tag. I wrote today's date and tied the tag to the tube. Evidence appreciates a label that nobody argues with. I set the tube inside a canvas bag and placed it under the table. I am not a warrior. I am a clerk who knows where the pages live. From the driveway came the thump of a trunk. a courier left a padded envelope on the mat. Britt signed without reading. When the engine faded, I stepped back into the yard and watched her carry the envelope inside with both hands. The afternoon leaned toward gold. Bees stitched low over the time. I checked the side gate again. The phone in my pocket vibrated. A message from Kara. Unornamented. We have requested the original instrument from the recording desk. Your exemplar matches banking documents on file. Follow-up call pending. I answered with 2 words. Thank you. I brewed tea in Tom's old enamel pot and stood by the sink while the kettle counted. The house felt smaller and truer. On the counter lay the pearl clip. I opened the hinge and pressed the teeth together, then closed it until it clicked. When the tea was ready, I poured half into my cup and half into a clean jar. Gwen appreciates tea that tastes like a pause. I set the jar on the porch rail and let steam tell the air where I had been. I rinsed the cup and watched the sink swirl. Steadiness is not a pose. It is a practice learned in small rooms. I pinned my hair again. Missing pearl cooled against my temple, a reminder that loss can fasten. Near dusk, another car rolled up and idled. Voices bent through the hedge, a banker's tone, a promise with corners. Britt kept saying clean. Caleb kept saying later. I did not catalog the sentences. I cataloged the weather of them. Frantic, thin. When the car left, the house exhaled smoke from the kitchen vent. Somebody had left a burner high under nothing. Heat without food makes a room nervous. I wrote that in the journal too. I had just closed the cover when a new text buzzed from a number I did not know. The sentences were short and sure. The punctuation had weight. We need to talk. Now. Victor's text arrived like a ruler laid across a messy desk. We need to talk. Now. I replied with a single sentence. Use counsel. 2 minutes later, Gwen called. Her voice had the careful brightness people use when a storm lifts its corners. She said a gentleman and 2 associates were on her walk and wished to speak with me in a neighborly setting. I told her I would come by the side gate. I asked her to leave the door open and the kettle on. Gwen's living room holds a piano that remembers children. Sheet music sleeps under the lid. She had set 3 cups and 1 empty place. The missing cup was a kind of wit. Victor Hale stood when I entered. 2 lawyers rose half a beat after him. The older carried the posture of a man who had argued for a living. The younger held a yellow pad and an eagerness she had not learned to hide. Gwen brought the tray and retreated to the doorway. Witness without weight. That is her craft. Ms. Reed, Victor said, thank you for receiving us. He did not sit until I sat. Manners are also measurements. I placed Tom's green canvas folio on the table and kept my hand resting lightly upon it. You asked to talk, I said. Proceed. The older lawyer opened a leather folder. We propose a stipend equal to a mid-tier residence of your choosing, moving expenses, a small signing consideration, mutual non-disparagement, mutual release of claims related to occupancy, confirmation that you have vacated voluntarily. Voluntarily, I repeated. You chose that word again. He smiled as if we were discussing a bridge game. It is the cleanest word for all parties. Clean is a term of art for you, I said. For me, it is what the sink looks like when the dishes are put away. Victor folded his hands. We can resolve fear here, quietly, now. I am not afraid, I said. I am reading the clock. The younger lawyer cleared her throat. Ms. Reed, this framework protects everyone. Your comfort, your son's stability, third parties who relied on expected performance. It is humane. Humane is a word that does not belong on a form, I said. Say what matters. Your lender requires a title commitment with no exception for occupancy or life estate. Your insurer will not commit while I breathe in a chair that belongs to me by law. Your SPV faces default interest on Friday at 5. The older lawyer's smile thinned. You speak like a professional. I speak like a widow who kept records, I said. Paper remembers what people forget. Victor shifted his gaze to the folio. What is that? Memory, I said. I opened the canvas and removed a tabbed sleeve. I laid Tom's aquifer map on the table. Blue lines and pencil arrows filled the room with a quiet that did not apologize. Gwen didn't gasp. She steadied the tray. The younger lawyer leaned forward. The USGS crest watched her from the corner. I placed 2 fingers on the hashed clay lens. You are not buying a house, I said. You are digging a water grave. This hill holds a clay seal that keeps salt from traveling under the valley. Deep footings break it. Wells go brackish within 18 months. My husband mapped flows. He refused a proposal 15 years ago for this reason. He wrote it in his hand. The older lawyer began to speak. Victor lifted 2 fingers and he closed his mouth. Victor studied the legend. His eyes moved across the penciled note. His jaw tightened and released. If this were accurate, he said, choosing each word as if it might cut him, regulatory bodies would have flagged it. Regulatory bodies flag what they are shown, I said. You have not pulled this thread because you hoped the title would clear before questions multiplied. I am not multiplying. I am placing a single number on the table. What number? He asked. Time, I said. Yours is short. Mine is patient. The younger lawyer looked at the date in the corner. She traced Tom's slanted sentence without touching the paper. Where did this come from? She asked, the eagerness leaking into something like respect. From a room your clients did not lock, I said. From a man who believed that water keeps promises when people do not. The older lawyer tried the stipend again, sweetened it, added a clause about legacy rights to photographs of the home, language for people who like keepsakes after keys are gone. I waited until he finished writing humanity into his bullet points. Then I slid the life estate copy toward him. I tapped the phrase until my final day. I let the text stand in the air between us. Victor's face did not change. The air around his voice did. What would resolve this for you? He said. Evermark will resolve what it can. The rest belongs to your conscience, I said. Withdraw your interest from this parcel. Find a site that does not carry a lens like a lung. Stop asking a mother to certify her own disappearance. Gwen poured more tea as if to mark the sentence. The piano lid shone. Outside, a sparrow tried 3 notes and chose the second. The younger lawyer reached for the map and stopped her hand an inch away. She looked to Victor. He gave a single nod, permission to see what should have been seen. She bent closer. Her hair fell forward. She pushed it behind her ear. Her finger hovered above the crest. Is this a United States Geological Survey base? She asked, voice smaller now. I did not answer. The coroner already had. Her eyes moved to Tom's marginal note and held. She was very still, the kind of stillness that happens when a story you believed could be arranged meets a line that cannot be moved. When Victor and his lawyers left Gwen's house, the air felt taller, the kind of height rooms regain when a heavy picture is taken off a nail. Gwen closed the door with 2 fingers. She did not ask what the map meant. She knew enough to brew more tea and set it within reach. I returned Tom's folio to my bag, thanked her with a hand on her shoulder, and walked to the corner where my phone could think. I called Amelia first. She listened without interrupting. Then she said to keep the folio sealed and to write the minute and the faces. I called Noah next. He asked me to come by with the invitation card and any trace of bids or old correspondence I might have found in Tom's drawers. Noah's office lights were warm against the early dusk. He had drawn a fresh grid on the whiteboard. SPV and title sat where he left them. He added a new column labeled Dirt. He slid a printout across the desk. A subcontractor purchase order for augercast piles. Pile schedule indicated mobilization the following Wednesday. Depths that would bite through the clay layer Tom had sketched. Noah tapped the line that read dewater plan pending. If they start this, he said, the lens you showed me is a throat under their boots. He spread another sheet. A soils report summary. Dense clay at 12 to 18 feet. Recommendation for deep foundations and controlled pumping. This language triggers other language, he said. Department of Ecology, County Stormwater. Possibly Army Corps if wetlands are touched. None of it wants to learn about the lens by accident after a check clears. He handed me a stapled packet. A contractor safety plan with boilerplate that assumed the ground was just ground. Paper assumes. Water remembers. Another ping from his phone. He raised an eyebrow and tapped. A contact had forwarded a redacted letter of intent between Harbor North's SPV and a builder. Phase 1 to begin upon receipt of final commitments and permits. Keep schedule pressure high. Execute site preparation within 10 days of close. Noah drew a ladder of dates, then wrote Friday 5 p.m. under it and boxed the time. Title first, he said. If Evermark refuses, the ladder falls sideways. If they push anyway, we open the other door. The other door is not a headline, I said. It is a packet, he answered. USGS base map with Tom's annotations, your chain of custody photos, a cover memo that speaks in verbs, regulators respect, breach, intrusion, impairment, no adjectives, only nouns with consequences. He watched my face while I weighed the shape of that door. The part of me that wanted noise was small and tired. The part of me that wanted consequence was awake. We do not run to the press, I said. I am not interested in flames. I am interested in boundaries being seen and held. He nodded as if a knot had cinched. You are trying to save your son from the worst version of himself while refusing the lie he asked you to carry, he said. Quiet pressure serves both aims. If the title commitment dies, Harbor North cuts bait. They move to a different parcel. Your son is left with his debts and his choices, not with a prosecutor reading a press clip. I set the pearl hair clip on his desk. The missing pearl faced up like a small zero. I will live with a crack, I said. I will not live with salt in the wells. Then we stage the levers, he said. He opened a manila envelope and labeled it in block print. Open if site work begins. He slid inside 2 copies of the map scans, Amelia's memo about the forged instrument, and a short list of agencies with direct numbers that bypassed front desks. He sealed the flap. Then he handed me a second envelope with nothing inside. This one is for regret you think you might feel, he said. Keep it empty. We returned to the board. Noah wrote Kara's name and drew an arrow from exam to commitment, with a blunt break across it. Your walkway is simple, he said. Answer the examiner. Be visible where you are allowed to stand. Let Gwen be a witness if anyone pretends you were not present. If a contractor truck touches your gravel before the title is clean, call Amelia first. Then me. Then the numbers in the envelope. I logged each instruction in my journal. Time. Place. Words. I wrote the sentence about empty regret because I wanted to remember that some spaces should remain spaces. When I closed the cover, the room felt orderly, the way kitchens feel after dishes are dried, and the light over the sink is the only one left on. We stood by the door. Noah said he would keep working the back channels that talk in questions rather than threats. He said he would call if any lender email suggested panic. I thanked him without saying thank you. We have our codes. On the sidewalk, the evening cooled. Porch lights came on one by one like careful stars. I pinned my hair. The clip clicked. The missing pearl kissed my temple. I walked the long way home past the park where Caleb learned to brake on gravel without skidding. I let the memory rise and pass. Love is not a defense. It is a reason to be careful with force. My phone buzzed as I reached the hedge. The number belonged to Britt. I had not given her permission to use it. She called anyway. I let it ring. Then I answered because avoiding is not the same as boundary. Her voice was thready and fast. Sylvia, please meet me. I cannot breathe in this house. I made copies of things I was not supposed to see. I do not want to go to jail. The kitchen window glowed. The lake threw a thin ribbon of light against the lower pane. I kept my voice even. Where? Midnight found me in the grocery store lot beneath buzzing lights. Britt waited by the cart corral in a coat over pajamas with a tote clutched to her ribs. She stepped close, then stopped as if distance were a kind of honesty. The roofline hid behind the trees. The lake held a thin strip of light. She handed me the tote. Inside, a folder and a bag of receipts. On top lay color prints of bank statements and an email thread. The subject line read, "Performance Window." The sender was Victor's assistant. The tone felt like a clock. One email said, "Everyone wants a quiet weekend." Another said, "Failure to deliver clear title will trigger enhanced pricing." Transfers moved between an SPV account and a vendor with a tidy name. The numbers were large. The pattern was hurry. "I made the copies at work," Britt said. I told myself I was building a safety net. Really, I was hoarding oxygen. She unfolded a page. This is the first message Victor sent to Caleb. He wrote, "Keep your mother calm. If she refuses, we have other tools." She pressed the paper flat on the hood. I thought he meant another stipend. Now I think he meant fear. We stood without touching. I saw a younger version of myself the year Tom lost his job, and I doubled shifts at the firm. A woman fastening calm like a uniform. I did not absolve her. I let recognition stand beside judgment. The pearl clip cooled against my temple. Loss can fasten, so can resolve. She began to talk. The sentences walked. Caleb found an old file of Tom's from before my fracture. He scanned a page with my clean signature. They printed it into a quitclaim someone had drafted. The notary never arrived. A self-inking seal did. Purple. Quick dry. "I told him it would pass," she whispered. "I said the world forgives tidy paperwork. I wanted to be the person who could make things happen." "People forgive," I said. "Paper remembers." The words left without heat. Stop trying to be impressive. Start telling the truth. Britt gripped the cart rail. "If I turn this over, do I go to jail?" Her mouth trembled and steadied. "If I tell you everything, will you forgive me?" "Forgiveness is a key I carry," I said. "Tonight, I am unlocking a different door. You will write a statement that records what you just told me. You will keep copies of everything you brought. I will not promise you safety. I will promise you process." She nodded, small and quick. Caleb is afraid of Victor. Victor is afraid of the lender. The lender is afraid of time. I am afraid of who I have become." She wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. "I do not want to be this person." "Then stop being her," I said. "Begin now." We spread the folder on my hood and worked with the care of people dressing a wound. I photographed every page. I wrote the time in my journal. I signed and dated the back of each print. She signed and dated beside me. We labeled the bag and sealed it with tape from my glove box. I texted Amelia one sentence. "I have documents and a witness. Call when you can." She called 10 minutes later. Her voice knew the road home in the dark. "Keep the chain intact. Take Britt somewhere safe to sleep. Do not give originals to anyone tonight. In the morning, go to the county recording desk. I will meet you there at 9. Bring the folder, bring the journal, bring Britt if she will come." Britt heard the last line. Her chin lifted like a swimmer choosing where to breathe. "I will come," she said. She looked toward the dark roofline and then back to me. "I do not know what happens to my marriage." "Consequence happens," I said. "Sometimes repair, not because we shout, because we sign." I closed the tote and handed it back. "You keep custody until morning. Meet me at the front steps at 8:45. She tucked the tote under her coat. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "I am tired," I said. "I am not a stone. I will let paper carry what my voice cannot." The lights hummed. A truck rumbled toward the delivery bay. We parted without hugging. Quiet has rituals. Mercy prefers them. Back home, I set the kettle and placed my phone by the window. I typed a memo. Midnight meeting, parking lot, Britt's confession, documents logged, Amelia to meet at 9. I pinned my hair and felt the missing pearl touch skin like the period at the end of a sentence that finally knows where it belongs tonight. Morning at the county building felt like a library with louder shoes. The marble swallowed voices and kept only decisions. I arrived at 8:45 with Britt beside me. She carried the tote under her coat. Amelia stood by the directory with a folder marked Chain of Custody. Kara waited at the records counter with her purple pen. We formed a square of quiet in a hallway built for echoes. Amelia greeted us and took the tote without opening the folder. "We log first, we speak second," she said. We filled out receipt forms for the prints and emails Britt had made. Dates, times, where each page had been, who touched what. Paper remembers. Britt's signature shook. Amelia steadied her with a nod that did not borrow pity. Kara led us to a side room with a glass wall and a table bolted to the floor. She placed the questioned instrument on a felt pad. My banking exemplars beside it. An evidence ruler above the signatures. A blotter below. "For the record," she said, "state your name and the date of your wrist fracture." I did. She wrote. Her letters marched in even rows. A clerk arrived with a deed book and a stamp that looked older than all of us. He set it down as if it were alive. It was. It turned time into paper. Amelia pointed to the notary mark. Kara examined the ink under a small light. Oil-based grows into fiber. Water-based sits on top like a costume. Under magnification, the seal showed a broken ridge. A cheap dye leaves shallow teeth. "On preliminary review, we cannot rely on this instrument," Kara said. She recorded the sentence into a form and into the room. "We will note the commitment team." The clerk asked for my identification. He compared my face to the license, then to the specimens dated post-fracture. "Ma'am, please sign here to attest authenticity," he said. I signed, slow and steady. The The tail of the Y trembled where it should. He nodded. He stamped the attestation. The sound landed like a soft hammer. Thump, pause, click. Amelia slid a short affidavit onto the pad. Statement of non-consent to vacate, she said. Read, then sign. I read every line, only verbs that can be proved. I signed and dated. The clerk stamped again. Thump, click. The room exhaled. Britt did too. Kara stepped out to call her commitment desk. She returned 5 minutes later with her face plain. Evermark will not ensure a transfer that treats Ms. Reed as if she surrendered occupancy, she said. We will place an exception for life estate and possession. The commitment will be withheld. If pressed, we will issue a refusal. Amelia nodded once. The square of quiet grew roots. Britt handed over one more envelope. The stamped purchase order for deep footings Noah had flagged. Kara logged receipt and photographed the dates. If site work begins, ask counsel to notify compliance, she said. Today I am speaking only for title. We returned to the counter. The clerk slid duplicates into a manila sleeve and wrote my name on the tab. He stamped the receipt and sent it across the wood. The sound carried weight beyond its size. Thump, click. I put my palm on the sleeve. It felt warm from decision. Outside, autumn light made the stone steps look newer than they were. Amelia touched my elbow. Go home. Be seen. Answer no hypotheticals. Let the refusals travel through the wires, she said. Kara shook my hand. Her purple pen tapped once, like a quiet promise to finish the work before Friday evening. Britt thanked no one, and everyone in a single breath. She said she would meet us tomorrow if needed. Then she left to find air that did not belong to a lobby. My phone vibrated before we reached the curb. Unknown number, I answered. Victor's voice arrived without ceremony, calm as a suit on a hanger. You just signed the sentence on your own son, he said. There were gentler ways to do this. You chose a stamp. I pictured the old tool on the counter. I pictured Tom measuring a railing so it would not catch skin. A stamp does not judge, I said. It records. Your clock is the only thing passing judgment today. You think time favors you, he said. Time favors what holds, I answered. Law, water, a boundary with a name on it. He exhaled once, and the call went flat. I tucked the phone away and stood on the steps until my breath matched the weather. Steady, cool, enough. Then I walked toward home with the sleeve under my arm and the sound of thump, click resting in my chest like a steadying drum. Day 7 began as a gray wall moving in from the lake. By noon, the rain found its rhythm. I made tea, wiped the porch rail with my sleeve, and listened to the roof tick where a nail has always held the hardest. Near dusk, a car door slammed. Then my son rose from the storm like a man walking out of a bad dream. He climbed the 3 steps his father built and did the thing I could not have pictured a week ago. He went to his knees. The envelope in his hand had softened. The ink bled along the edge as if the paper wanted to confess. He looked up through rain and fear. Mom, he said. The word cracked. Please, sign this and it is over. I opened the door to the chain. The house breathed behind me. The clock in the hall kept a steady witness. I held my palm out. He passed the envelope with both hands as if he were giving me a child. Inside lay the same form in cleaner clothes. Voluntary vacate confirmation. A notary name. A space for my signature, a line for time. I let my gaze pass over it once, then twice. I felt the pearl clip at my temple. The missing pearl cooled like a small moon against skin. I will not sign this lie, I said, but I will sign something else. Stand up. We will speak to counsel together. He hesitated, then rose. I dialed Amelia and pressed speaker. Rain stitched the silence. She answered on the second ring. Her voice made the porch feel level. "Sylvia, are you safe?" "I am," I said. "Caleb is here with a form. I will sign only with conditions." "State them," she said. I looked at my son. "Listen," I said, "then choose." "First," I said into the phone, "a written confession from Caleb and Britt, notarized today, detailing the forged instrument, the false notary, the pressure applied, and their roles. Second, Caleb will surrender financial power of attorney to a neutral fiduciary of Amelia's choosing for 5 years. No loans, no lines of credit, no transfers without oversight. Third, both will sign and record an irrevocable relinquishment of any present or future interest or claim in my home and the parcel, including any right of possession, occupancy, or proceeds. Fourth, a wire of $300,000 today to establish the Reed Porch Fund for Elder Legal Defense, administered by that same fiduciary, with public reporting each quarter." Caleb blinked hard. Rain ran off his chin like pen strokes. "And what do you sign?" he asked. "A settlement acknowledging receipt of those documents and funds," I said. "I will sign a narrow non-prosecution agreement for the forged instrument conditioned on full performance. I will not sign any form that calls my leaving voluntary. I will sign a statement of occupancy that repeats the will sentence until my final day." Amelia's voice steadied the rhythm. "I can draft now," she said. "Execution at the county building, not a living room. A notary we trust. Wire confirmation before release. If either party hesitates, we walk." "Understood," I said. Caleb swallowed. "That is ruin," he whispered. "That is consequence," I answered. "Ruin is pretending this form becomes truth because you are afraid. Consequence is how people earn their way back to a name that can hold weight." He looked toward the street as if someone might arrive with easier words. Rain smudged the distance. "If I do this," he said, "do you stop the bleeding?" "I stop the lie," I said. "I give you a road. It will be long. The first mile begins tonight." He pressed his palms together under his chin. The gesture looked like prayer and bookkeeping at once. "Britt," he said. "Bring her," I said. "She signs what she did. She signs the relinquishment. She helps fund the porch." Amelia spoke again. "Caleb, I will email a checklist in 5 minutes. Gather your identification and Britt's. Bank contact for the wire. Bring your phones. We meet at the county clerk's side room at 8. Say yes now, or let the clock finish you." "Yes," he said. The word barely made it through the rain. I ended the call and set the envelope back into his hands. "This is not a door," I said. "It is a shredder dressed like Mercy. Throw it away." He slid the form into his jacket as if it were hot. "Mom," he said, smaller, "now, will you ever forgive me?" "Forgiveness is a key I carry," I said. "Tonight I am unlocking a different door." He nodded, a helpless, human motion. He rose from the wetboards and backed down one step, then another. At the bottom, he steadied himself on the newel. Tom sanded smooth. Rain fell like a curtain. He tried to speak again and chose not to. He turned toward the car and moved quickly, as if speed might harden his courage before it bled away. I closed the door to the chain and leaned my forehead on the cool wood. The house listened with me. Somewhere inside, the kettle clicked as it settled on the stove ring. I breathed until the roof ticked in time with my chest. Then I took the pearl clip from my hair, wiped it dry on my sleeve, and placed it on the hall table beside the deed copy. The missing pearl looked like a period waiting for its sentence. Tomorrow would decide what words came next. The county side room smelled like cardboard and ink. We arrived at 8, with Rain in our cuffs. Amelia stood at the head of the table with a stack aligned to the inch. Kara waited by the glass wall with her purple pen. Noah sat in the corner with a laptop open to a bank portal. The notary adjusted his stamp as if tuning a small machine. Silence did the heavy lifting. The clerk laid out a blotter and an evidence ruler. The deed book waited open like a quiet spine for us. Amelia spoke in numbered steps. Order of execution, she said. 1. Written confessions. 2. Limited power of attorney to the fiduciary. 3. Irrevocable relinquishment of all interests. 4. Wire authorization to establish the Reed Porch Fund. 5. Settlement acknowledgments and occupancy statement. She placed each set in a clean lane with tabs. Caleb and Britt entered together. Umbrellas dripped into a rubber tray. Britt's face was scrubbed. Caleb's hands were empty. Amelia pointed to the first page. Read every line. Sign only when a line matches the facts, she said. If a word is wrong, we fix the word, not the truth. Britt took the pen. Kara observed without commentary, counting breaths with the clock on the wall. Her confession named the forged instrument, the self-inking seal, the emails about a quiet weekend, the instruction to keep me calm. She did not decorate. She described. She signed. The notary moved his seal. Thump. Click. Caleb read longer. His eyes stopped on the sentence about the older signature lifted from Tom's file. He added a line in his own hand. He wrote that he had retrieved the page and delivered it to Britt. He wrote that fear does not absolve a lie. He signed. The stamp answered. Thump. Click. His shoulders dropped. Next came the power of attorney. Amelia explained the limits. No new debt. No withdrawals without dual sign-off. Monthly reports to the fiduciary. Caleb held the pen between steadying fingers. He signed. Britt initialed. The notary recorded the time. Kara logged witness details in neat purple. Rose. The relinquishment lay like a thin gate. This removes any present or future claim. Amelia said, You do not live here. You do not profit here. Britt signed first. Caleb signed after. The notary's seal answered them. Thump. Click. Kara added a short attestation of execution without duress. Noah cleared his throat. Wire, he said. He confirmed routing and account. The fiduciary answered on speaker. The fund's number repeated twice. Caleb authorized the transfer. Britt confirmed. Noah watched the screen. A reference code appeared. He printed the advice and slid it to Amelia. 300,000 credited, he said. The Reed Porch Fund is live. Amelia clipped the advice to the packet. Amelia turned to me. Your signatures, she said. I read the settlement that acknowledged receipt of the documents and funds. I signed the narrow non-prosecution agreement conditioned on full performance. I signed the occupancy statement that carried Tom's sentence until my final day. The notary stamped each page. Thump. Click. Silence was a hammer that did not bruise. It shaped. I did not hug my son. I did not pat his shoulder. I set my pearl hair clip on the stack for one breath and then took it back. It was not a trophy. It was a marker. We had reached the line I drew. Kara excused herself to brief her commitment desk. Noah closed the laptop. Amelia squared the folders and wrote filing numbers on an index card. Britt whispered thank you and looked at the floor. Caleb tried to speak and settled on a nod. We left the side room in a small procession. The corridor smelled like wet wool. The elevator hummed. On the landing, my phone buzzed. A text from Noah arrived. HNC Counsel notified the lender they are withdrawing from this parcel. Term sheet pulled. No closing. A second message followed from Kara. Title exception stands. Commitment withheld. File notes reflect today's record. I stepped to the window and watched rain comb the courthouse steps. Victor did not call. His number went to voicemail with a generic tone. The party is canceled. The valet tent is gone. Bulbs in the trees look like early stars. Amelia touched my sleeve. Go home, she said. Put the index card by the deed. Answer only what is asked. Let the quiet finish the job. I nodded. We parted at the lobby doors. Outside, the rain had softened into a patient mist. I walked toward the hill with the folder under my coat and the clip secure in my hair. The missing pearl rested against my temple like a period where the sentence needed it. Not an end to everything. An end to this. The week after the signing moved like a tide changing under the surface. Harbor North withdrew from our parcel. Kara's note entered the file. Victor stopped calling. The party lights came down. The rented bar vanished. The lawn took a breath it had been holding. Inside my house, the air felt heavier and cleaner. Quiet had done the work. Loudness promises. Consequence began to take its everyday shape. The fiduciary sent Caleb a schedule and a list. Sell the car by the end of the month. Move to a smaller apartment within 6 weeks. Start debt counseling. Submit weekly reports with pay stubs attached. No credit applications. No cash transfers. Without approval. He signed each line and made the calls without speeches. The sedan left the driveway. A bus pass appeared in his wallet. A black trash bag of clothes and books rode down the stairs he had once taken 2 at a time. He found a short-term studio with a squeaky radiator and windows that did not pretend to be more than they were. On Mondays, he met with a counselor in a strip mall office. On Tuesdays, he sent me a photograph of a page filled with numbers and the words current plan at the bottom. He applied for work without theater. The park district hired him on a trail crew. He learned to swing a Pulaski and to let the shovel find the root instead of fighting it. He did not ask me to be proud. He showed up. Britt began the small life that follows a large story. She took the early shift at a bakery on Main. Flour dusted her sleeve. She kept her head down. She learned the names of regulars and how they take their coffee. In the afternoon, she visited the fiduciary's office to hand over receipts. The reports arrived on time. The commas knew their places. One evening, she asked if she could volunteer 2 hours on Saturdays to help the Reed Porch Fund with intake forms. I told her yes. Sit at the far end of the table. Ask names and addresses. Bring tea when the room needs heat. Leave before sunset. Do not speak for me. Do not speak for the law. We hung the sign on my porch the way Tom and I once hung wind chimes. Careful. Level. Reed Porch Fund. Saturday legal aid for seniors. Gwen stood at the steps with a clipboard and a tin of lemon drops. She greeted neighbors by name and asked how they liked their pens. Amelia came with a small team of retired attorneys. Noah took a chair near the rail and mapped dollars while sparrows argued in the maple. Our first visitors arrived quietly. A widower with a roofing contract that doubled after signature. A retired nurse targeted by a reverse mortgage pitch that hid its teeth. A veteran whose caregiver asked him to sign a blank check. We did not give speeches. We read, we wrote, we mailed registered letters with deadlines that tasted like iron. A contractor returned a deposit. A lender rescinded a fee. A caregiver found a new job far from that porch. Gwen made order with kindness. She set a basket for phones. She sharpened pencils and returned them to the same jar every week. She kept a small stack of clean handkerchiefs by the sign in sheet. On the second Saturday, she stepped down to the lowest tread, bent, and came up with something caught between finger and thumb. "This fell under your step the night you were turned out," she said. In her palm sat a single pearl with a speck of grit where wood had held it. She did not press it into my hand. She set it on the windowsill in a shallow saucer, a small moon waiting for a sky. "You have time," she said. "Not every repair should be rushed." Quiet wins multiplied without fanfare. Noah drafted 2-page demand letters that used verbs with teeth. Amelia filed 3 complaints that never saw a courtroom because the signatures at the other end understood what stamps can do. Paper remembers what people forget. Our neighbors learned to carry copies and to ask for time. I did not shout. I signed. I watched hands unclench around pens. I watched eyes read their own names and believe them again. At night, I walked the property line and checked the gate latch. I wrote notes in my journal. Date. Who came. How the roof looked in the west light. I slept better than I had in months. Not because trouble was gone. Because the house had its boundary and I had my work. Some mornings a bus hissed at the corner, and I glimpsed Caleb through the fogged window. Steel-toed boots, lunch bag, a tired posture that chose honest wait. He did not try to make amends with speeches. He sent a message that read, "Week 3. No missed days." I answered with a single word. Noted. Britt kept her distance and honored it. She showed up on Saturdays and left on time. Once, a woman with shaky hands could not remember her bank's mailing address. Britt found it and printed a label without looking to me for praise. When she was done, she rinsed the teapot and wiped the table twice. Before she left, she touched the saucer where the pearl waited and then pulled her hand back as if the moon were hot. On a windy afternoon, near the end of the month, a plain envelope arrived with my name written in letters that leaned like saplings. I opened it at the porch table while Gwen sorted forms. Inside was a single sheet torn from a tablet and a program from a church 3 towns over. The letter said this: "I am 79. I thought the world had decided my name was a purse. Your people told me to keep my money and my name. The man who wanted my roof deposit gave it back. I slept through the night and woke up hungry. I had forgotten that feeling. Thank you for reminding me I am still here." A shaky signature sat under the last line. A small, pressed violet rode in the fold. I read it twice. Then I set it on the windowsill beside the pearl and the saucer, and let the late light find both. Quiet can be a hammer. Quiet can also be a balm. Tonight, it was both. Morning lays a spill of pale gold across the lake. Ripples catch it and carry it shore to shore. I set out the porch table and the basket of pens. The Reed Porch Fund sign lifts in the light breeze like a steady breath. The kettle ticks toward boil. Gwen arrives with lemon drops and a clipboard. She straightens the sign in sheet and wipes the table twice. The maple shades the steps. The newel Tom sanded feels warm under my palm. Peace, earned and ordinary, takes its seat. A letter from Kara arrives in the noon. Mail. 2 pages. Exact and unadorned. Evermark has closed its file on the attempted transfer. Exception for life estate and possession recorded. Commitment withdrawn as a matter of policy. She notes that the parcel appears on no active calendar for construction. No request for footing inspections. No dewatering plan filed. 10 minutes later, Noah texts a single sentence. Harbor North moved to a different site upriver. Their lender agreed, term sheet replaced. The water under our hill remains in its covenant. I unlock Tom's study and roll the map across the drafting table. Blue lines like veins, arrows like breath. I take the envelope addressed to me from the folio and frame the letter. I center it above the map, where a window of winter light will find it, without fading the ink. On a small card, I write one word in block letters: kept. I lean it against the frame. Then I set the pearl on the saucer by the window and close the study door with care. Caleb stops by on Tuesday after his shift. Trail dust sits on his cuffs. The bus pass shows through his wallet the way a good habit shows through skin. He does not step inside. He stands at the rail and holds up a pay stub like a small flag. I do not wave back. I nod. He asks permission to sand a splintered porch tread. I point to the toolbox. He works until the board lies quiet under the ball of my foot. Words are few. Work is many. Britt comes each Saturday with rolls in a paper bag. She sets them near the tee, not at the center. She asks names and writes addresses in neat squares. She learns to wait while someone spells. She cleans the mugs and leaves before sunset. Once she says, softly, that she told Victor she will not sign anything for any parcel ever again. His sigh sounded like a tie being loosened. There are worlds she no longer belongs to. I answer with a practical sentence. Bring more lined paper next week. Gwen takes the lone pearl to a jeweler friend who mends music boxes. The friend returns it in tissue. One tiny claw straightened, a faint seam where heat kissed metal. It is not perfect. It is truer than new. I fasten the clip and feel the pearl settle back where it lived before fear tried to buy the house it rode upon. Gwen smiles and says a thing I keep. Some repairs do not hide what happened. They honor it. I nod and turn my head to hear the hinge click. The porch fills with the small bravery of neighbors. A woman brings a lease with a phantom pet fee. Amelia circles the clause and writes a letter with verbs that do not blink. The fee falls away. A widower arrives with a roofing contract that doubled after signature. Noah drafts a demand. A check returns to his pocket with the ink barely dry. A veteran worries about a blank line on a charity form. We add a dash and a date. Nobody empties his account. We stamp envelopes and walk them to the box together. At night, I stand where the gravel path meets the gate and watch the lake turn steel and then glass. Boundary is not a wall. It is a promise you keep with yourself and your dead. Forgiveness is a key I carry. Some days I turn it. Some days I do not. Either way, it belongs to me. The law holds me here until my final day. The law holds water where it wants to run. Both are mercies when people forget their shape. The house breathes easier. So do I. Later, I sit on the dock with a cup of tea and hear the neighborhood settle. Somewhere a radio plays a song from the year Tom and I painted the bedroom. Somewhere a child laughs and does not know why. If you have stood on a porch with a paper in your hand and a name you feared might vanish, you know this weight. You also know this lightness when the name stays. If you are willing, leave a single word where I can find it. Here. It will be enough. I lock the door without hurrying. I set the index card beside the deed and the framed letter. I rest the pearl clip on the table for one breathing space and then slide it back into my hair. Quiet is not absence. It is attention. The lake holds the last light and gives it away in small coins to the dark. Somewhere beyond the trees, a bus sighs. Somewhere up valley, the clay lens sleeps and keeps its promise. I turn out the porch light and let the house keep mine until my final day.